Hi, welcome back. So in this session, we will learn about what are the Salesforce Developer interview questions and answers which were asked in Cognizant interview preparation. So first question is, what is cascading delete? So cascading delete is a powerful feature in Salesforce that allow to delete the related or child records when you delete the parent record. This can be helpful for maintaining data integrity and preventing orphan records. It means whenever you create a parent record, whenever you delete a parent record, the associated child record will be automatically deleted in master detail relationship. That's why it is called cascading delete. Okay, what is roll-up summary and how we can create? So we can create roll-up summary field by automatically displaying the value on a master record based on the value of records in a detailed record. So these detailed record must be directly related to your master through a master detail relationship. You can perform different types of calculation with roll-up summary field. In other words, we can say that a roll-up summary, it calculates the value of associated child records. It means whenever child record, suppose your child records has five records are in containing. So the master record, it will be created that in the child record that it five records are created in your child record is containing the all the values like it calculates the sum, mean, max, count, whatever the problem statement was that. So what are the steps to create roll up summary fields? So first you will go to object manager from setup object, then choose account and field name relationship, and whichever what type of object uh, you can choose from there. So field and relationship, click on next button, select roll up summary field and click on next, enter the details. So choose opportunity for object to summarize and select the sum of roll up summary file type which you will aggregate is quantity fielded. So roll up summary field has the following functions that count, main, max and sum. So what are the functions are there? The sub count used to count the number of child record that exist for a parent record. Okay, and the sum calculate the sum of the values of a specified field on a child record, that is number, currency and the percent field are available for some calculations. As sum is selected, you must provide a field to aggregate. It contains the list of numeric field in the child object. It will calculate the sum of the amount of opportunity line item put on the roll up field. Okay, that is mean used to calculate the field minimum value in the child record and maximum value for the used to calculate the maximum value of a field in all the child records. Okay, what is reparenting? So reparenting allows you to edit the parent detail of the object which is not allowed to edit. That is for example employee like this of object. Okay, it means note that in a master detail relationship records cannot be reparented. However, to allow child records in master detail relationship on custom objects to be reparented, so click on the master detail relationship, then there is option for allow reparenting option in the master detail relationship. So when you enable this option, the user can change the parent of the child records. Okay, how to create master detail relationship when two objects have data in it? First, link both objects into LD and keep no child for fun. So you need to create the lookup relationship first, then populate each one so that each child record has a parent. After doing this activity, then you can convert the lookup relationship into the master detail relationship. Okay, the does not allow for orphan child record. Once you have lookup with each having a parent, then you can go back and convert the lookup into master detail. So to convert MDR to LDR, first we need to delete RUS. So firstly, when you convert the master detail relationship to the lookup relationship, so firstly we check that is there any rollup summary field are using in master detail relation from the child records. If yes, then firstly you want to delete the child rollup summary field. Then after that you can convert the master detail relationship into a lookup detail relationship. Okay, so you can convert the here the full details that you can convert the master detail relationship to lookup by editing the particular field. Go to the field, change the field type, select lookup. Note that you can convert a master detail to a lookup relationship as no long to roll up summary field can exist on this master object. So you will have to delete the roll up summary field, but in case you want to retain the field data, you can create a new field and copy the data from the roll up summary field to newly created and just delete the roll up summary field. Okay. LDR to MDR is not possible by configuration, can be done by customization. To convert lookup to the master data, you need to give the parent record on all child records. Then only you can convert a lookup relationship to a master detail relationship. If the lookup relationship in all the child record contains a value. Okay. What is hierarchy relationship applicable to only user object? Question mark. No. Hierarchy relationship are not applicable only to user objects. Hierarchy relationship can be used for various contexts and are not limited to a specific type of objects. That is, in computer science language, a hierarchy relationship typically refers to the structure where objects or entities are organized into levels or tiers. So with each level having a parent-child relationship. For example, in a file system, you have a hierarchy of folders and files. The folders can contain other folders and files, creating a hierarchical structure. Then when you click a folder, then you can go to another folder, then it goes to folders containing some files over there. So second is, in an organization chart, employee can be organized into a hierarchy with manager at different levels. And in database, you can have a hierarchy of data records where each record can have parent and child records, creating a hierarchical data structure. In object-oriented programming, classes can be organized into a hierarchy with inheritance where subclass inherit properties and methods from their parent classes. So hierarchy relationship can be applied to various type of objects and data structures, not just their user objects. The specific application depends on the context and the requirements of the system or domain you are working with. Hierarchy constraint violence: when any record tries to make self as a parent, then this error will come. So in Salesforce, you can enforce a hierarchy constraint to prevent records from creating a circular or a self-referencing relationship using a combination of validation rules and trigger. Here you can achieve this like you can create a validation rule to check if a record is trying to set itself as a parent. So is pickle record type and your record type and parent underscore is equal to c is equal to id. So replace your record type with the actual name of your record type. So this formula checks the if the parent underscore c field, assuming that this is your parent reference field, is equal to id of the same record. If they are equal, then it means the record is trying to making itself a parent and the validation rule will trigger. And second, by using trigger, so trigger prevents self-reference on your object, on your custom object, whichever you want to perform any trigger before insert and before update. For your object record, trigger.new if record.parent not equal to none and record.parent is equal to record.id, then record.add error, a record cannot be its own parent. So by these two validation rule and the trigger, you can simply enforce the hierarchy construct to prevent records creating a circular or self-referencing relationship. Okay, this trigger runs before records are inserted or updated and check if the parent field is trying to reference the same record by comparing it to a id. By combining a validation rule and a trigger, you can effectively enforce the hierarchy constraint to prevent records in Salesforce from creating self-referencing parent-child relationship. So, write a trigger to add error before deleting account if account is having a associated contact. So, here is a code for adding an error if account has associated content. If you want to delete an account, this trigger will work. So trigger prevent account deletion on account, that is before delete operation, that is where I create a set to store the account ID that have associated contacts. Then after that you query for associated contacts, that contacts had related to that particular ID, to that particular account or not. Get all the contacts from that particular account ID. After that, store the ID of the contact ID, and iterate through the accounts being deleted and check for associated content, that it's being for account is equal to trigger dot old if account with associated content contains some ID or not. If it's contain ID, then icc.add error cannot delete account with associated contacts. Advantage of scope in a batch class. Scope parameter specifies the number of records to pass into the execute method. Use this parameter when you have many operations for each record being passed in and are running into governor limits. By limiting the number of records, you are limiting the operations per transaction. This value must be greater than 0. If the start method of the batch class returns a query locator, the optional scope parameter of database execute batch can have a maximum of 2000 if set to a higher value. Salesforce chunks the record returned by the query locator into a smaller batches up to 2000 record if the start method of the batch class return an iterable. The scope parameter value has no upper limit. However, if you use a higher number, then you can run into other limits. What is context variable in trigger? All trigger in Salesforce determine implicit variable that enable developers to access the runtime constants that they don't need to define objects from their sides. To access the record that caused to trigger to fire context variable are used. Here are some context trigger context variable that is executing, is insert, is update, is delete, is before, is after, is undelete, new map, old map, and size. So these are the functions of that it trigger dot is execute list of all triggers context variable that trigger dot is executing. It returns true if the current context of for the apex code is a trigger, not a visual for page, and a web service or an execute anonymous API call. Triggers.is insert returns true if the triggers was fired between the due to an insert operation from the Salesforce user interface. And similarly for is update, and similarly for is delete, is before, and similarly for is after returns after all the records were saved, and is before any record was saved, is delete returns true if the trigger was fired due to delete operation from the Salesforce user interface, and is update trigger returns true if the trigger was fired due to an update operation from the Salesforce user interface. So yeah, trigger dot is in undelete returns true if this trigger was fired after a record is recovered from the recycle bin. This is after an undelete operation from the Salesforce user interface. Trigger.new return a list of new versions of a as object record. This as object list is only available in insert, update, and delete undelete triggers, and the records can only be modified in before triggers. Trigger.new map a map of ID to the new versions of the S object records. This map is only available in before update, after insert, after update, and after undelete trigger. And trigger.old returns the old versions of S object record. This S object list is only available in update and delete. Okay. Trigger.old map, a map of IDs to the old versions of the S object records. This map is only available in update and delete. And trigger.size, the total number of records in a trigger invocation, both old and new. Trigger context variable considerations. Trigger.new and trigger.old cannot be used in Apex TML operations. You can use an object to change its own values using trigger.new, but only in before triggers. In all after triggers, trigger.new was now saved. So a runtime exception is thrown. Trigger.old is a read only, always a read only, and you cannot delete trigger.new. What are the best practices of Apex triggers? So one trigger per object, logicless trigger, context specific handler class, avoid SQL query, inside for loop, avoid hard coding IDs, avoid nested for loop, avoid DML inside for loop, bulkifying your code, enforcing in Salesforce, use at the rate future appropriately, where clause in SQL query use trust driven development. So these are the best practices of writing an Apex trigger. So one trigger per object, it means it is always advised to create only one trigger per subject type, and the benefit of having only one trigger is that you can easily maintainability and control the order of execution. If you create more than one trigger, then you cannot control the order of execution, and trigger logic with which whatever the trigger logic you can we can it will execute first. Okay, so if there are any managed packet triggers, then that can be considered as a exception if there is no such restriction that you cannot create more than one trigger per object. Logicless trigger. Before we'll talk about what logicless Apex trigger, or let's talk about a scenario, that is scenario number one. When the contact record is created, populate the description of the contact record with a static value, that is logicless Apex trigger rocks. How will you solve it using Apex trigger? So it's a logicless trigger, that it's trigger contact trigger on contact before insert for creating a for loop for contact and trigger dot new. Then contact description is logicless Apex trigger rocks. Will the above code work? No, it serves, but it's not efficient way of writing code in triggers. Okay, as we are writing the logic inside the Apex trigger, it is not an efficient way to write a trigger. We should create a handler class and create a method inside the class, in that class, and then write logic there. Before Below is the modified version of the same problem. That's create an Apex class, create a method inside the Apex class, call the Apex class method from trigger, that is public class contact trigger handler, publish static void handle before insert list of contact list for contact list contact description logic less trigger Apex locks. So and calling this method into a trigger, that trigger contact trigger on contact before insert contact trigger handler and dot handle before insert trigger dot new. Context specific handle methods. We should always be using context specific handler methods in the handler class. Let us take an example that validate the contact address and then update the address status field with valid or invalid based on API response. In the above use case, you will after insert, as we need contact record ID to the update the record, so create a dedicated handler method for after insert and do the same for all other contexts. So here are the two pictures that modified Apex trigger for Apex class, that will be public static void handle before insert list of contact and this. So first one is the contact description logic is separated, and second is public static void handle the list of contact list, and second is trigger calling the class and method in trigger, that is if trigger dot is before and trigger dot is inserted before, handle before insert will be executed, or if trigger dot is after and trigger dot is insert, trigger dot contact trigger handler dot handle after insert will be executed. Avoid SQL query inside for loop. As we all know that Salesforce works on a multi-tenant environment, it is very important that we'll keep all the limits in mind. So there is a SQL query of limit 100 in every transaction. Requirement are: when a contact is created, update the contact address same as the account address. I have seen that there are developers who do not write the code below. When you see there in SQL query in line number 7, if you insert 101 contact XY contact at once, you will get the SQL error that SQL limit exceeds 101. So like in this first picture, public class contact trigger handler, publish static handle before insert, get contact list for contact list, contact description, and if contact account is not equal to null account ACC select ID billing city from account where ID is null, and contact billing city is equal to ACC dot billing city, and add all the field at disable field. And also you can call another method like publish static word handle after insert, and list of same logic will be performed if you want to. Instead of using the SQL query, we should take help from the so if one reduce the error before is the modified version for the same, that is yeah, set of string account id set is equal to new setting, and for contact add id add account of site id into the contact map string account map is equal to new map string comma account. For account is it's a better way from the first scenario that we used avoid SQL query inside the for loop. Okay, it will bypass the covenant limits. How avoid hard coding IDs? We should always avoid using hard coding IDs to in the Apex class Apex trigger. For example, if you want to check if the account record type is a business record account, then only process the records. Many developers do like this below, that is publish static handle account list of account list string record type, that is you will many developers hard coded the record type id, that is not correct. Here is the modified version that public static word handle account list of account is equal to account and string record type id dot is equal to schema dot as object type dot account get record type by info by name, and dot get system level business account record type is equal to dot get record type id. Then for account ACC record account list, if ACC dot record type is equal to record type ID, then further the logic you will enforce that. Avoid nested for loop. We should always try to avoid the nested for loop in the Apex code, which will impact the performance of our Apex class. When the contact is created, updated the contact address same as the account address. So publish static void handle before insert list of contact list, set of string for a contact if contact account id not equal to null, account id set dot add contact account id, list of contact for level 1 for loop and level 2 for loop. Here you can see that it is level 1 for loop and it is level 2 for loop. And instead of using nested for loop, below is the modified version of the worker. You can compare that. We can create public class constructed, then is the step method for creating a list of the contact, set of a string for if contact account id not equal to none, then add the contact id, then map the account map from this account for account ACC select that account for contact and publish static after insert. Avoid even inside the loop. Like we should all avoid the SQL statement inside the loop. In the similar fashion, we should avoid making DML inside the for loop. We should use collection list to store all the records, then do DML outside for the loop. You need to create a child case when a contact is created, that like this one, insert created, it is inside the for loop. But you cannot use like this, you can use like the avoid DML inside the for outside the for loop. Okay. Bulkifying your code as a developer, most of the time we always write the code and test it for a single record. So if we only develop the code for a record, and it will fail when there are bulk records. So we should always write the code which is bulkified, and when writing the unit test we should always test using minimum 200 records. To write the bulkified code we should always use collection like list, set and map. Enforce sharing in Apex. So by default, Apex classes runs in system mode, which means it will never check object or field level security no matter which user is running the Apex class, and which always run in the system context, to make sure that the class are running in a user context, in order to make sure that our org is in compliance with security, and also our code is secure from any threat. So 10th is use at the rate future appropriately. Sometimes there are some scenarios that where we want to run some logic in asynchronous mode, or sometimes we get into some errors like mixed table operations, that we try to update or insert the record on a setup or a non-setup object, that mixed table error will become. So we need to create the at the rate feature or QL classes and use it wherever you can use it. Below is a couple of scenario where you can use either at the rate feature or QL Apex. We are getting mixed table operation error. We need to make a call out from Apex trigger. The code does not need to be a part of the same transaction and can run in future. Use where clause in SQL querying. I have noticed that as a developer, we often forget to add where clause in the SQL query. So which result that it is not unnecessary rows are also increases in SQL time. So as a best practice, we should always try to put where clause in all the SQL queries, and also the limit clause. We also should query only those fields which are needed and remove any unnecessary field from the SQL query. Use test-driven data development. Last but not least, let's try to use test-driven development approach, which will let you know all the possible positive and negative scenarios of any requirement. So test data development approach will be helpful to writing code that is secure and optimized, and will prevent the positive detect. So these all are interview questions which were asked in 2023 for Cognizant. So I hope you like this video. Please hit like and subscribe my channels. So thank you all.